I ruined my stepmom's 50th birthday party over cake. My stepmom was a nasty woman to grow up with. Mean, vindictive, and had an inferiority complex that she used to attack anyone who was doing well, especially those doing better than her. My dad spent my childhood over the road, and mom was in and out of inpatient facilities until she passed, so a lot of my time was spent with her being my only available carer/guardian. I won't bullshit and say I was perfect, but I wasn't bad. Good student, involved in community and school activities, and as soon as I could work, I got a job. My biggest issue was that I often took an attitude with her and her family, all of whom sucked to be near. These people have been in my life since I was 4. I am now in my late 20s and not one of them were ever supportive or kind. I had aspirations to go to school and be a psychologist, a teacher, a therapist, a veterinarian. Honestly, I think I just liked the structure school offered and wanted to continue with it after graduation, but as soon as I was handed my diploma, my stepmom handed me a notice to vacate the property. Less than a month later, I was gone. To be fair to him, my father did try to intervene and prevent the eviction since it was his home. But she was the main occupant in the house, and we were informed by a local cop that she could in fact remove me from the home and press trespassing charges if I ever came back. To this day, I think he was likely full of shit but didn't want to deal with it. So I was 18, homeless and supposed to start college a few months later, and I had chosen a local school and rejected better scholarships so I could stay home and save money on housing. I found a place with a man that became my best friend, and I did try to attend school, but honestly it just didn't feel right anymore. Between full-time work just to scrape by and the mental health issues that arose in the aftermath, I couldn't continue and dropped out. My dad was unable to offer much support, and most of my family never cared to intervene since she had convinced the majority of them that I had chosen basically to go and see with them. She would call and gloat about how hard the real world is, make snide comments about my dying mother, and in the same breath offer sympathy and support if I came back home. At holiday dinners, she would tell everyone I was the first psychologist she'd ever seen working the till at McDonald's, and if I defended myself, I would be chastised for not taking a joke. It was humiliating, and after a few years I realized I could block her and she couldn't do shit about it. So I did. My life did turn around. I work as a pastry chef in a bakery I adore, and would love to buy someday if the owner would let me when he retires. It's not a life I ever imagined for myself, but it's a good one that I share with my fiancé, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. In the past 2 years, I resumed contact with my dad and as a result, his wife again. He's still a doormat and she's still a cunt, but she's not picking on a little girl anymore, and I bite back now. I've also managed to contact my mom's family, who had been estranged from her for decades before she died, and met people who could have truly loved me if they had known I existed. Dad's family are kept at arm's length, but I finally have a family that I can talk about when my friends are discussing holiday plans, and that's all I ever wanted. Doing what I do for a living, I always show off a bit at family gatherings, and I've often made custom cakes for relatives when asked. Boundaries have been established, and after the first cousin who tried pushing them found herself without a cake on her son's birthday, they are respected. Stepmom hates my job. She hates that I'm happy, that I don't care if I'm a bit plump, that I'm engaged, and she's not allowed near the wedding. She hates that I'm good at what I do, and try as she might, the only thing she can ever insult is the fondant. Which, fair. I don't care for it either. At my dad's birthday party last month, I baked a lovely 3-tier red velvet cake for him and provided numerous pastries as well as a cookie buffet. My boss is a godsend for letting me use his industrial kitchen to make it all. All stepmom could say was my cake tasted like a box mix, and that was it. 2 decades of abuse, and I was finally done trying. I spent days making everything I provided, all free of charge, and she compared my labor and knowledge to fucking Betty Crocker. No shame to anyone who bakes/likes Betty or any other boxed mix, but it's like comparing fast food to your own home cooking and the fast food being preferred. A total slap in the face to the hours of labor and effort, and years spent honing and perfecting recipes. She asked me at the beginning of February to bake her cake for her 50th. No other details other than she didn't want red velvet, and it was for 100 people. I agreed. I stocked up on Duncan Hines and canned frosting, slapped the frosting on top of shitty sheet cakes a day before, and didn't bother decorating any of them. Stepmom was livid. I ruined her birthday, embarrassed her in front of her friends and family. How could I be so callous, etc. I just told her she compared my cake at Dad's party to Betty Crocker, so she must prefer low-effort cakes. I left shortly after she started crying. Apparently, she had planned on Instagramming the party and had planned on my normal quality of care for my desserts. Dad didn't care. He just said it was best if I'm not around her for a bit, and we meet up somewhere other than his house. I don't want to be near her again, and I hope her family choked on that dry-as cake. XGF tried to cheat, so I permanently scarred her emotionally by not taking her to prom. I was always a grade-focused student and missed out on a lot of HS experiences, like having a GF. My senior year, I loosened up and started dating. Eventually, I met a foreign transfer student who shared common interests with me, and she became my GF after a month of casual dates. Because she grew up mostly outside the US, she dreamed of going to a real prom. I was stoked to take her and make her dream come true. However, a few weeks before the dance, I found out through friends that she was texting another guy asking if he was down to hook up. She didn't know I tutored this guy before, and we were friendly. Once he found out I was her BF, he showed me her texts and told me nothing happened. I wasn't angry with him, but I was livid with her, and played it off like I knew nothing. She excitedly bought her dress and made appointments to get her hair and makeup done, and kept talking about plans for the dance. The day of prom, I texted her that I knew about her attempts to cheat and that we were done. I went with a close female friend who knew the situation and needed a date. We had a great time and made awesome memories. My ex never got to go to her senior prom because she couldn't get another date last minute, and it scarred her emotionally and mentally because she not only got labeled a cheater at our high school, but her dream never came true. Years later, friends tell me she's still extremely bitter about missing out on the epitome of HS dances. I feel no guilt. High school teacher used to call me a loser, and I would never amount to anything. Ran into her 20 years later on an elevator at my office, at the same university where her husband works. Sorry this is long. I went to high school in a small southeastern U.S. town. During my junior year, 11th grade, I had a U.S. history teacher who always acted like she was better than anyone else. She was the type that would always say things semi-jokingly about students, which she thought were funny, but came off as pretty mean and hurtful. Unfortunately, she was really popular with parents and the administration, because to be fair, she was a good teacher, and her students did well year after year on the AP exams, taken to earn college credits if you got a high enough score. So she got away with insulting whomever she wanted to insult. Also, she was the type who bragged about being married to a professor. She actually had an affair with him when she was a student, and he was married to his first wife, but I digress. At the time, I was dating a guy, also a junior, who happened to be the friendly neighborhood school drug dealer. This was the 80s, so pot and mushrooms were the go-to recreation, nothing too hard. And looking back, I think it was a far more innocent time. Our school was a notorious party school and sat adjacent to the university's dorms. The university was a notorious party school as well, so town was known around the region as a party place. Most parents took it in stride, because many of them were university employees or local business owners. Our teachers were pretty cool too, for the most part. Many of them went to the same university, so they knew the town and the local vibe. However, this teacher liked to talk shit about the party-type kids, saying they would not amount to anything, end up in jail, die of overdoses, etc. She was always picking on us, saying we were bad eggs and losers. One day, grocery shopping with my mom, we saw her in the parking lot, and she came over to speak to us. She started off by saying that I was doing poorly in her class. I was not. I had an A at the time, and that my grades were declining because I was dating that boy in the most dramatic snarky southern accent you can imagine. Then she proceeds to tell my mom she was raising a junkie and a hoe, and I would not amount to anything. My mom shot something equally snarky back. I can't remember exactly what, but she came to my defense swiftly, and my teacher scurried off with a shocked look as my mom embarrassed her pretty severely. My parents were the type of parents that were pretty laid back. They knew I was not doing anything worse than what they did in college. I just started partying in high school, looking back. Maybe they were a bit too laid back, lol. The rest of the school year was uncomfortable, to say the least. I dreaded going to her class. She seemed to make my life miserable at every chance, and now worked in insults about my mom too. I was really hurt, and never forgot how mean she was. I did graduate the next year, went to college, worked for many years in government, then went back to school and got my PhD. I became a professor at the university in my HS town. I never ended up being a junkie or a hoe, however. Riding the elevator one morning to my office, guess who gets on with me? Yup. She was going to visit her husband, who was a professor in another department in the same building. I was not going to say a thing, just stand there biting my tongue. But she recognized me, but can't remember my name. So I reintroduce myself, and she exclaims, "Oh, Afiza. I can't believe it is you. How are you?" I gave a polite, but cool response, and she said in her same snarky tone, "What are you doing here at?" I looked her dead in her eye and said, "Going to my office." "Your office?" She replied, "Oh, aren't you the funny one inch?" I did not say anything, but when I got off the elevator, I turned around, pointed down the hall to my office. "Down the hall on the left, department, if you want to drop by. Ask for Dr. Afiza." And I smiled the fakest smile, flipped her off, and said, "Good to see you," returning the snarky attitude. Additional mildly amusing information. I worked with her husband a few times on various committees. He used to try to get me to go to dinner or out with him. I think just her knowing I was a professor was petty enough for me to feel gratified. Thanks for reading. Back from college break to have nothing. I'm so proud of my daughter for this. Long story though, sorry. My daughter 19F had a group of high school friends for years. Fast forward freshman year college, and her new roommate becomes part of the friend group. I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer the same day she started classes that year. And as the year goes on, her relationship with some of these friends starts to have problems, but the roommate still seems solid, so they sign a lease for sophomore year. By the beginning of sophomore year, all of her high school friends, 4, have turned on my daughter, and she's struggling to figure out why. By the end of September, she finds out the roommate has been playing both sides of the fence and has ultimately sided with my daughter's old friends and continues to see them regularly. This, of course, creates a nasty living situation for my daughter, but she does her best to manage through. As time goes on, I come to find out that her friends turned on her because they felt that her emotional needs were toxic for them to be around. My daughter was having panic attacks about my cancer and other normal things and was reaching out to her friends for someone to talk to, and they couldn't handle it. A few weeks ago, the roommate invited 2 of these friends to stay over. My daughter asked that they pick another time as she had work and then an all-nighter ahead of her finishing her finals, and she didn't want to be in the apartment if they were going to be. The roommate ignored this request. My daughter walked into them being there after work and had a panic attack. The roommate looked at her and said, "See, this is why you have no friends when you behave like this. What do you expect?" This week, my daughter managed to find a way to move out before the roommate came back from break. The couch, the coffee table, the rug, the pots and pan, the dishes, the shower curtain, on and on, all of it was my daughter's. The internet, the electric, the water, all in my daughter's name. She took everything, moved out, and left the roommate to come back from break with none of it working and all of the shared space items gone. And left her a note signed, "What did you expect? Oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when she walks in. I don't need headphones. That's a you problem." I was riding on an Uber pool this morning when an incredibly inconsiderate individual got in the passenger seat. He pulled out his phone and started watching videos at full volume and blasting music. "Do you happen to have headphones?" I asked. "No, why would I need headphones?" he responded. "Because you're in a car with other people and it's a considerate thing to do not to force everyone else to listen to your videos and music." "That sounds like a you problem," he replies, going back to watching his video. So I pulled out my phone and blasted Baby Shark from the back seat for the remainder of the ride. If he turned around or got upset, well, that's a you problem. In-laws constantly berate my baking skills in favor of sister-in-law, so I copied her cakepop design and tricked them into eating it. This isn't necessarily my proudest moment, but I am tired of being the outcast. My 32F husband, Pete, 34M, comes from a family where the women are all bakers. I am a baker myself, and I used to sell out of my house under my state's cottage laws, but stopped because I like it just being a hobby. Is Estelle, K, 39, is the one who is known for her cupcakes and cake pops. When I first met everyone years ago, it was the first thing I learned. Everyone talked about everything she made. Even when Pete mentioned how good my stuff was, everyone would say that Kay sells hers, and they're popular, so they must be better. Whenever I bring treats, they are often left untouched because they are not Kay's. Yes, I've been told that. They ask me to bring something every get-together and never touch it. To be clear, Kay is mainly a baker, whereas I bake and specialize in professionally decorated cakes. Kay says that overly decorated cakes are compensating for their bad taste, and Pete's family agrees. We had a barbecue Monday for Memorial Day, and everyone made their treats. Kay decided to bring cake pops. She posted them on her Instagram the night before. So, and I know this immature, I made the exact same one she did. Same flavor and design. We got there and everyone asked where my treats were. I said they're in car and I'll get them in a minute. So I waited for everyone to be outside, then I brought mine in and put them next to Kay's. After we eat, I noticed the family eating my cake pops and not Kay's. She didn't notice at first and then asked if they weren't feeling cake pops. They said they just ate them and they were the best she ever made and asked what she did different. Emil even said they looked so much better in person than in the picture. Kay was confused and said hers were still on the table. That's when I said, "Oh, I brought those. Glad you enjoyed them." Her husband said he hadn't had one yet. Lies, he ate two, and everyone else just said, "Yeah, they were okay." Kay didn't say anything the rest of the night. Pete thought it was funny. He didn't know what I did until the reveal, but his brother, Kay's husband, said yesterday that what I did was mean and I'm just mad that Kay is a better baker. But Pete said it's ridiculous the family, including Kay, puts down my baking when they won't even try at all because I'm not Kay.